What's going on, everyone? Moose here, Cigars and Gear, and in our Friday fashion, we are back for FAFO Friday, and we are here to talk about defending yourself and what you can do and what you should and shouldn't maybe, I don't know, rely on. Um, in the earlier weeks, we've talked about less lethal, right? We've talked about um, tasers. We've talked about pepper ball guns. And they do have their limitations. While they are viable options for defending yourself, they do have limitations, right? And the limitations are, especially if you live like where I live up in northern Michigan, where it's colder more out of the year than it is warmer. People are wearing thick hoodies, or they're wearing jackets, Carhartts, things like that that are real thick, and those pepper ball launchers and those tasers may not be effective against somebody in that kind of gear, only because they can't penetrate that outer shell, that outer layer. Um, so moving on with all of this, I decided to let's talk more lethal ways of defending yourself. And that could be a handgun, it could be a shotgun, it could be um, an AR-15 style gun, which is not an assault rifle. Let's make this very clear. it is no different than any other gun. Yeah, I hear this all the time. That's a scary gun. It's so deadly. Let me tell you something. A shotgun with buckshot in it is way more lethal than most ARs, especially if you want to talk about defending yourself. Um, you know, Big difference. Do your research before you just go out and label things that you don't understand. But and that was a PSA for YouTube and all of the crazies out there. But let's talk about the differences in handgun styles. We've got revolvers, we've got guns with safeties, we've got other guns with safeties, we've got guns that have safeties built into the triggers, so not necessarily a safety switch. Even like the Smith & Wesson M&P 40, some do have safety switches, some do not. So you can actually pick which version that you want. Now, people are like, what do you mean a gun without a safety? Well, it's not that it doesn't have a safety. It's that the safety on like a Glock is built into the trigger. So, which means that in order to fire the gun, you actually have to depress the safety. There is a blade on the inside of the trigger so that the trigger itself will function. So great option for self-defense, if you ask me. Me personally, I prefer a Glock style gun for self-defense. If I draw a gun or go to my gun cabinet and I pull out a gun to defend myself, right? I've got somebody in my house. They are actively looking to hurt me. Then I don't want to worry about pulling a trigger. I want to pull a trigger and know what the outcome is going to be. I don't want to fumble with a gun and have it not go off because I forgot to take the safety off. The 1911 can be a great tool as well. It does have a thumb ambidextrous safety on some, but it also has a safety catch in the back so that in order to fire the gun, even if I pull the safety off and if I'm not touching this, it will not go off. Now, this is an empty gun. There is nothing in it. As a matter of fact, it's a replica gun. But in order to fire this, I actually have to depress the back blade here to get it to fire. Right. So great option for somebody that wants a little more safety conscious. Revolvers are the same way. Once again, actually, all of these are replicas of guns that I just figured it was better to do them with replicas. That way I don't get the YouTube cronies freaking out on me. But even like a revolver like this, it's got a safety in the back here. The gun can be, fired. But it can also be unsafe to where you cannot pull or even cock the hammer, right? So Same thing with the Beretta. The Beretta is actually a very unique style because if the safety is off and the gun is ready to fire and the hammer is back and I engage the safety, it's got an anti-decock or it's got a decock. So if I put the safety on, it decocks the gun. It won't fire the gun. It'll just decock the gun. And then the trigger does not work. It actually disengages the trigger from the sear. So another cool option. Glock on the other hand, a little bit different. Once again, replica guns. You know, there's no safety per se on the gun. It's actually built into the blade of the trigger here. So if I don't push, right? So if I just trying to bump the trigger, it doesn't work. I've actually got to depress this lever and pull the trigger in order to get it to fire. The M&P, same basic idea. Safe, trigger disengages from the sear, fire, and it re-engages the sear. So lots of different styles. Cool things about some of the Glocks, some of the M&Ps is these back straps on the grip are interchangeable. So like this one came with I think 3 different models of back strap. So they've got like a thinner one, a thicker one, and a thickest one to model to your hand. Now the nice thing about these guns is, especially like the M&P, the Glock, the Beretta, and the 357 Magnum, these are exact replicas licensed by Smith & Wesson, Glock, Beretta, and Dan Wesson here for training purposes. So this has exact weight to the actual M&P 40, right? So this is a great training tool, right? So I have holsters for the M&P, and you know, so it gives me that ability to train without actually using my actual firearm, right? So that's a cool thing. Fully field strippable, you know, magazine drops, you know, very cool. You know, like I said, very cool idea for training purposes. Then we never ever have any accidental discharges. It's something that, you know, like I use the Glock 17 and the Glock 19 a lot, and it is for, you know, training. Like in my house, when my family's gone, it's just me. A lot of times I'll use it to do my training in my house and reenact what happens if somebody is in my house and I need to defend my home. You know, how can I approach corners so that, you know, I'm ready to do what unfortunately nobody really wants to do. So these are great options, right? So if you are interested in, like, you know, like a Glock, for example, you know, these replicas can be had for really cheap compared to what the actual Glock costs. But it gives you that comfort, right? And if you're new to CPL or, you know, things like that, this is another great alternative to be able to, I think this is for my 19, but it should still hold it. You know, it's a great option to put the weight into your holster and wear this around your house on your side so that you're comfortable with that weight. Now, that's not for everybody. I understand that some people are going to actually want the actual gun. But like I use this one, for example, in my training harness here for my chest rig, right? If I'm just trying to do some, you know, basic around the house, you know, or whatever, around the yard or out into a training environment, that one stays there for that. 1911 is something that I'm definitely partial to as well. I just love the I don't know, I just love the 1911. I actually want to buy a 2011. So double stack 9mm 1911 frame or style. Okay, that's what I was looking for. But yeah, so there you have it. You know, it doesn't always have to come down to lethal force, but it could. And that's what's important, is knowing that, you know, if you have, like, let's say a handgun or a shotgun or whatever, and you know there's a threat, you know, it's definitely something that you can be prepared for, to say, okay, and I don't think I have one out here at the moment, a pepper ball. But, you know, maybe you approach with, you know, your handgun on your side and your pepper ball in your hand, and you judge that situation at that point, right? I'm going to go in with less lethal. And if I deem that that's not appropriate, I can drop that less lethal and draw my lethal, right? It's the same reason that police officers carry tasers and handguns, right? It's because not every scenario deems lethal force. But when they do, you should be prepared to utilize that, especially when it comes to your family. You know, me as a male and as an independent, I care less about myself than I do my family, right? It's just the way it is. You know, I'm not being weird. I'm not, you know, trying to be a martyr or something that I'm not. But I have less concern for myself than I do my wife and my son or my daughters, right? That's where this turns into something nobody wants to see. So, but anyway, with that being said, man, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully you guys learned something. You know, one thing is for sure is that you can go to your local gun store, try them out, see what fits your hand best. Ask them if you can shoot those things, man. Get out there and learn. If this is new to you, I understand it's scary. Everything's scary, but they're really not. They're no different than any other tool that you have in your home, because that's all these are, is tools, right? My rifles are for hunting or target shooting. You know, that's what they are. They're tools, and you know, and can they be used for self-defense? Yes, but that's not their main goal. Not in my book. Generally, almost everything I have, with the exception of a few, because there are a few that I would deem more, yes, those are for protection, 100%. But here's a great, like I said, the next step in the evolution of FAFO Friday. Next week, I haven't decided what we're going to do yet, but we're going to do something cool. And we're probably going to bring Dave in. Maybe we'll bring Dave in and see what Dave thinks about FAFO Fridays. But anyway, with that being said, I'm Moose. Be good to each other, be good to yourself, and God bless.